Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. All right, friends. Now, what are nerdy physicians' favorite times of year? It's got to be back to school. I don't know how many of us will geek out about getting to Target, Walmart, wherever we're going, and seeing all the new school supplies and just remembering how excited we were to go and pick out all the things, right? Trapper Keepers, if you're old enough to remember one of those, and they're back, my friends. We've got new pens, new pencils, right? Everything fresh and ready. Why is it that back to school time was so exciting? It was a refresh. It was a reset. It was a great time of year that your parents had to get you some new school supplies. We're going to lean into that energy because we are in that time of year, but we're going to use this back to school time as a way to think about refreshing some of our routines so that we can make things easier for ourselves. Now, if you're listening to this and you're rolling your eyes and you're saying, oh, my kids have already been back to school for 2 weeks, I know, I'm in a part of the country where we start later. I'm also, of course, not immune to the fact that Target had stuff out in June for back to school, which is just 100 degrees of wrong. But here at the end of August, it is a legit time to think about back to school again, whether it's already happened or it's still upcoming, or maybe you are blissfully unaware of any academic calendars at all. Great for you. But still, we are going to look at this as a time to refresh some things that have gotten stale and look at it through the lens of how can I make things easier. So when we are thinking as physicians about how to make things easier, we want to think about what is the stuff that we actually can make easier. The work that we do is inherently complex. I don't care what kind of physician you are. Your medical knowledge, your ability to talk to people and deal with the messiness of human bodies, diagnoses, difficult conversations, all of that is just going to remain complex. And yes, there are ways that we can develop new skills, right? Make that easier, but there's complications there. Whether you're insurance or cash pay, right? Those are different challenges. And yes, we can create systems and make some of those things easier as well, but we're going to focus on lower hanging fruit than that. What are the repetitive tasks that we do over and over again at home, at work, that we can make easier? This is the time of year that we want to really think, how do I dust off some of those things? How do I refresh them so they're working better for me? And how do I continue to ask myself this question? How can I make this easier? So if you lean into perfectionism, as many of us do, this time of year can be a trigger for, well, I'm going to create an all new system. Well, I'm going to make this better. It's going to be just right, clean slate. That's not what we're going for here. What we're going for is figuring out what are the little things that are slowing me down in my day-to-day that do not take my doctor brain, but I am done giving away my energy. So we're looking at notes, right? We're looking at documentation. We are looking at inbox work when it comes to thinking about the physician refresh that we want to do. You're using dot phrases or AI templates or something to help your documentation. If you're not, we need to talk, right? We need to be offloading some of this work. But for many of us, things continue to change, right? Your templates change, what you have access to changes. Medical information changes. You realize that the phrase that you put together that you loved so much, maybe it's too long, maybe it's too complicated. You know no one's reading it. Maybe it's not long enough. Maybe you find yourself having to correct the same typos over and over and over again. This is a chance for us to sit down and look at some of that stuff and figure out, what do I need to refresh? So I'm going to go through some ideas, and I want you to figure out, what is some low-hanging fruit here that I need to update? And here's some ideas for me. So one, starting old school, this is old school now, is look at your dot phrases and your templates that already exist. This is not necessarily the AI stuff if you're using an AI scribe, but just pre-existing documentation. Maybe you created it, maybe it's system generated, but you find yourself having to fix things over and over again. Again, there might be typos, there might be something that's awkward, there might be something you constantly have to take out in some way. Give yourself a chance to sit down, maybe this week, maybe next week, but get it on the calendar and update some of those things. I'm not talking about creating all new ones. I'm talking about updating, correcting, figuring out where it's not working right now, the stuff that you already have. Another place you might look is setting up a chair side with whoever is kind of the expert. So that might be a dedicated, super user of whatever EMR that you're using, with the goal of helping you specifically make your documentation easier. We are not interested in training you as a super user. We are interested in helping you to fix the bugs. You don't need to geek out and learn all of the ins and outs of Epic or whatever you're using. What you want is somebody who really knows the system to sit down with you and help you design your flows, your phrases, whatever you need, so that your clinical documentation is easier. This is still a thing, right? It doesn't apply to everybody, of course, but there are dedicated people out there you can describe the problem to. They can help you. Now, more modern approaches is have a conversation with AI to help you figure out how to do things more quickly. So I recently downloaded a bunch of my dot phrases into Claude, and I said, my referrals need to be updated. Right now, I have all these, dot phrases, and I've named them all a bunch of different things, and I don't remember which one's which. I want this to be easier, because when I am in the room with a patient and we've decided we are going to send a referral, I have told them out loud where we're going, because as an independent contractor in a private practice, I can send them anywhere. I can send them anywhere locally that they'd want to go, right? So I have named, because I've asked, do you want to go to University of Washington? Do you want to go to Swedish, right? Those are some of my local referral places, as well as private practices for the few specialties in my area that have them. I have named it out loud. I know that my AI scribe is capable of hearing that and customizing that. They've also listened to the discussion that I've had with the patient of what is going on and why I'm sending the referral. Now, the default in my AI scribe is to create this very long referral letter that is essentially a whole new note. I don't need that. That's not how I do it. So I asked Claude, I want you to take my existing sort of templated stuff, and I want you to help me figure out, how do I make my referrals more streamlined? And it gave me a different answer than I thought it would, but it actually had a great idea, so that there's a new document type, so that after the conversation, after I've generated my note, I can add a second document that is the referral, and it's got the referral information that I can just copy and paste into the actual referral. It's ready to go. It says all the things that I would normally say, but I don't have to sit there and, type into the dot phrase. And it's also blowing in the patient information for that specific place that I've named out loud, and it knows it's the place that I'm sending. Now, This might not apply if you're inside a system and your system is the place that you're going to be sending referrals. That's fine. You might be better off having a conversation with a super user to help you customize, although I bet you can still sit down and have a chat with AI if you want to, and help figure out, how do I make this part of documentation easier, right? But the point is that we're not asking questions to try and understand better how something works or become super users or create more complicated things. We are going into this work asking the question, how do I make this thing easier? I wanted my referrals to be easier because I found that I had named things, a bunch of different things. I didn't keep track of what I had named, so I always had to look it up. I wanted that part to be easier, again, because I've already said it out loud to the patient. It's already captured in the transcript. I knew that we could do better, and now I get to practice having it do better, right? That was an excellent refresh and not the way that I would have thought about doing it, but here we go. I get to try it, right? Go into conversations, go into this next few weeks thinking, how can I make this documentation easier? Of course, we're going to figure out, some things that probably don't work. That's okay. We are trying to make this easier for ourselves. We will embrace the discomfort of things that are new because that's just how it goes. But we're going to try and keep asking this question over and over and over again, creating this new mindset. I know this can be easier. I'm going to make this easier. How can I make this part easier? Now, I'm going to come back to this because it is an important point that when we are thinking about adopting a new system, refreshing something that we have been doing, the default for most of us is, I've got to figure out the perfect thing to do here. I've got to figure out the perfect phrasing. I've got to figure out the perfect system. And often we will lean into making something more complicated. You think about, again, the school supplies thing. What do you want to do? You want to buy a new planner. Now, this is a trigger for a lot of people, right? Because we see these beautiful planners. Now, this time of year, right, it's the academic planners, which are different from the calendar year planners, right, that we get hit with in December and January. But it's still something that our brain looks and says, oh, I'd love to be more organized. That'll make me more organized. I'll become the person who keeps this beautiful planner. Our brain is searching for more order, okay? Our brain thinks that the way to do it is to create an all new system or start afresh. Again, sort of, buy this beautiful planner. We aren't doing that. I mean, I guess you can give yourself permission if you'd like to, but what I'd like to invite you to do instead is to think about this more of, I'm refreshing things so that it feels like things are working better for me. Not I'm trying to make systems more complicated, not I'm trying to become someone else's idea of being more organized. I'm just trying to continue my journey to make things easier for myself, especially the things that I can make easier, right? I can't make the patient visits necessarily more easy because humans are messy. I'm messy, you're messy, our patients are messy, right? Medical diagnoses are messy, bodies are messy. I don't think we're going to change that. But what I can continue to iterate and make easier is documentation, the way that we talk to ourselves, right? Those things are very helpful. This is a good thing to sit down and do right now as you are settling back into new rhythms, right? So again, we're sort of borrowing the refresh mindset of the back to school. We are thinking about being a little smarter, a little quicker on our feet, and leaning into good tools that help us to do our work better. Okay, so let's shift gears and let's think about stuff at home, because inherent in the new year, back to school mindset, and again, this doesn't really matter if we are a parent and we're dealing with back to school or we're not a parent. What we are just talking about is just engaging with that energy. If you want to think of this as a pumpkin spice refresh, you go ahead and you do you. But what we are trying to bring to this is figuring out, how can I make things easier? So let's think about things that are going on at home. Now, again, we're sort of coming back into more established schedules at this time of year because we don't have as much vacation chaos. People aren't taking quite as much time off, that kind of thing. Again, we are thinking about trying to make things easier. And, there's lots of sort of back to school cues around us all the time that are trying to get kids back into some kind of rhythm or schedule. So we're just going to lean into that. And let's think about the things that are currently clogging things up at home. So for a lot of us, it's simple things like, I'm struggling to eat lunch and I don't really have a good system around bringing lunch, making sure I have lunch, which leads me to eating crap or not eating it at all and then being hangry, right? What are some ways that you could make it easier to get some lunch in? Does that mean, I'm going to try going to Trader Joe's and buying a ton of frozen meals and I'm just going to take one of those every day? Great. Maybe we need to meal prep, right? Maybe we love preparing food and we just are out of the habit because, again, the summer was a little bit more chaotic. We were traveling, we were doing these different things. That's okay. We're coming back. All right. Do I need to start meal prepping? That means I'm going to need to have some ingredients ready. I'm going to have to figure out when I'm going to do that, right? Are we going to do that on Sunday afternoon? We're going to get lunches ready for the week. Easy peasy. Great. But let's come back to a rhythm. What do I need to remind myself? What kinds of things do I need to have ready? Maybe we're thinking about, getting some prepared meals elsewhere, right? Can I get delivery of something, right? Those meal kits that arrive and they're already ready to go, right? You get your salads delivered for the week. Great. They're right there. These are silly examples, but they are very real examples of a common struggle for us. And let's figure out, how do I make this easier, right? Like, what would be easiest for me to consistently get lunch to take care of my human self and make my days go better? Let's make it easier. We can apply this kind of thinking to chores or errands. Now, maybe you already have this locked in and you've just got everything sort of auto-delivered. Great. You already came up with some systems that are making that easier. Fantastic. Please share them with me. This is something that I'm thinking about, both like errands. How can I choose to do less errands? Now, some of that is learning to delegate. Some of it is also figuring out that, yeah, I am someone who absolutely procrastinates with shopping, with grocery shopping, the most boring kind of shopping, right? So if I don't want to procrastinate anymore, I have to catch myself doing it. But if I can know that in advance, right, then I have more awareness and I can realize, you know what, you're wasting a lot of time in shopping sort of willy-nilly, and that's not helping you, right? That awareness is helpful. It's not necessarily going to stop me from doing it every time, but because it's a new awareness, I can choose what I want to do and I can catch myself, oh, yeah, you were thinking that you just needed to run out to get this. Turns out I don't need that right now. Where can I figure out, do I need to go out and get it myself at all? Am I just trying to distract myself from something else? Is it something that I can get later? Just because it is on my mind right now, that's okay. I can put it on the list, right? I can think of myself in the future. I can figure out when it's going to happen. This is a common thing also for many of us, right? Because I talk to people about this. And again, we can make it easier. Chores. So Of course, there are things that we need to do at home to take care of our house or whatever it is. And this is probably not unique to physician moms, but I see it a lot in physician moms, and so I'm going to call it out here. And as a parent of a teen and a tween, I get this. The physician mom guilt of not spending as much time as we think we should or as we want with our kids can lead us to avoiding giving them chores or under choring them because we feel like we've already hurt them by spending less time with them, and we know that they don't like doing chores. Sometimes, too, we are holding on to, you know what, it's just easier if I do it myself because then I know that it's done the way I like it and I know it's getting done on my timetable. We're going to carry awareness of all of that as we think about this, but if you are a physician parent and you know that your children are capable of doing more than you are currently asking them to do, this is a great time, especially as they are getting back to school, we're creating new rhythms and schedules to up-level their chore responsibilities. Add chores if they don't have any. Upgrade the chores that they do have. You can apply this to anyone else in your household as well, but thinking about how do I get some things off my plate that it doesn't make sense for me to be the one doing? How do I help the others to have some awareness of what needs to be done? And sometimes there's going to need to be some coaching and education that goes on, just like anywhere else in our lives. And how do I make it easier? That might feel like it's a big ask, but again, we are thinking about leaning into new school year routines, new schedules. Kids are already up-leveling, right, what they're doing, right, because they're moving up grades. They are moving up in age and development and skills. We are going to tap into that at a very normal time and get their help and support in doing more. And we help them by helping them to be more independent now. It makes our lives easier when we put in the work to teach them how to become more independent now. I'm highlighting again that there is discomfort here. There is discomfort because mom guilt already has us feeling like we are not doing right by our kids, and that's very socialized into us. And we think, oh, well, I can't also ask them to do these things. But we are harming kids by not giving them responsibilities, by not teaching them how to become independent humans. This is a good thing to be doing. So let's recap. The whole underlying theme here is leaning in to asking yourself this question: how can I make things easier? On a regular basis, including tapping into times of year, I guess years if we want, where it's easier to remember to refresh, right? So back to school time is a natural refresh where, again, sort of schedules are becoming more regular, more new routines. We are thinking about up-leveling. We are thinking about, having a clean slate. We're going to adopt the parts that are helpful there to dust off things that need updating, right? Need up-leveling. So that is your templates, your dot phrases, those kinds of things. Maybe we need human help. Maybe we need AI help, but trying to figure out how can I make this more streamlined so that my schedules and routines are easier at work for the things that I can make easier. We're also thinking about what support do we need? How can we make things easier for other little life stuff that we have to do? Feeding ourselves, making sure that we have toilet paper and milk at home, right? Making sure that we are sometimes doing the laundry because those things have to be done. How can we make those things easier without relying on ourselves to be the only person doing anything? How are we going to think about how to make those things easier? So again, thinking about this time of year as a perfect springboard of how I'm going to settle myself into a new routine and rhythm that works well for me right now, that is tailored to the time of life that I'm in, right? Especially if we're thinking about lunch. Maybe we do not have time to meal prep. We would love to, but all we can do is just get some frozen meals. Great. We're just going to make that decision. We're going to go do it. How can I make things easier? All right, my friends, that is what I got for you. It's okay to go and buy yourself some brand new pens and even a new journal or planner if you want to. But what I ask is that you figure out how you make things easier so that you can sit down and delightedly use new pens or a new planner after you have gotten done all the crap that you have to do. All right, my friends, until next week, take care. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.